Everyone. We're just going to wait a couple more minutes as people are still joining. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome and thank you for joining us today as we celebrate the 20th year of the Seattle Trek. I'm Erin Shields, Director, Alumni and Employer Engagement here at Gonzaga, and I want to thank my colleagues in both alumni relations and career and professional development for all their work to make this a success today. While the Trek looks very different this year, we're thrilled with the response we received from alumni and friends who represented their organizations at the Career Fair and Expo earlier today. We're also so grateful for all of you who made it this evening, fresh off the holidays, during an especially strange week, and also on a game night. Thank you for accommodating this new time. And really, the tremendous support of our Puget Sound alumni is what instigated this trek 20 years ago and what keeps it our most robust trek, resulting in so many student success stories year after year. We had a total of 101 students participate in the Career Fair and Expo today, with a very impressive 33 organizations participating. I want to thank the alumni and friends who represented their organizations. We had Concur, Boeing, Costco, Parametric, E&J Gallo, BDA, DCI Engineers, Bernstein Porter, Enterprise Holdings, T-Mobile, West Monroe, Eddie Bauer, Packard, Deloitte, RSM US, Northwestern Mutual, Weyerhaeuser, Campus Point, Moss Adams, Washington Trails Association, Washington Conservation Corps, Washington Sound Transit, Campus Point, Inventec Marine Solutions, JVC, Chinook Capital Advisors, Amazon, City of Seattle Police Department, and Meridian Capital. We are sure you were very pleased with the ZAG talent you met today. Tonight, we're going to hear from our chapter president, Julia Esser, about the exciting things that are going on with our regional Seattle chapter group. We're going to hear from keynote speaker Marcus Weichenmeyer, creative director and chief of staff at Microsoft. And then the remainder of the evening will be reserved for networking, where we'll have you in several small groups with about 4 to 5 others, with the idea that you'll really get that face-to-face time to connect. So at this point, I'm going to welcome Julia Esser, our Seattle alumna, Julia Esser, our Seattle chapter president.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Erin. Hi, everyone. If my internet goes out or anything, just let me know. My name's Julia. As it says on that slide, I currently work for WeWork. I'm a regional operations manager working with some of the large enterprise accounts. I have been in Seattle, I think, for 5 years now, and this is my going on my third year as the Seattle chapter president. I wish that I had more to say about what we are doing, but I think, like a lot of chapters, we have been in a time of transition this year. This has been a difficult year for all of us, and we're trying to navigate how do we build community online, not in person, which, as many of you know, part of what makes being a ZAG the best is the community, and it's way more difficult to do that online. So I think we did one service project this last fall. We did a retreat, I think around the end of the summer. Both of those were really successful. And so we're hoping to redo those experiences, expecting to be in this pandemic a little bit longer. So we're looking at some retreats. We're looking at some more service projects. And then, of course, we are exploring ways, along with all the other chapters across the country, to make game watches a part of our offering when we can't be in person. We do, however, have a phenomenal leadership team that I work with, some really, really passionate people, obviously all alumni. So if you are in Seattle, or if you're going to be in Seattle, whenever, and you want to join our leadership team, let me know. We would love to have you. I can't say enough about the people that I work with. But yeah, we are super, super excited if you end up in Seattle to welcome you here. And we are committed to just keeping moving forward in this really difficult time. So happy to always answer any questions about the chapter that you have or hear ideas. Don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you, Julia. Yes, these are a fantastic group of ZAGs. They want to hear from you. They want to welcome you. They want to help in any way that they can. So strongly encourage you get involved in the chapter. Now I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker. Originally from Hamburg, Germany, Marcus Weikenmeier graduated from Gonzaga in 2008, earning a bachelor's of business administration with concentrations in marketing, finance, international business, and an additional concentration from the College of Arts and Sciences in Asian Studies. I had the pleasure of working closely with Marcus as he was a student intern for the GAMP office. We had never experienced a student employee quite like Marcus. And we probably never will. At the time, the Seattle and Portland treks were very well established, and student intern Marcus suggested we expand the trek program to New York City with a finance and Wall Street focus. He developed a plan, a proposal, and recruited and interviewed a group of his peers who made up our inaugural New York Trek group. As most of you know, the New York Trek, it continues today, very successful, one of our most respected programs. The next year, student intern Marcus proposed we expand the treks to the Bay Area, and he accompanied me on a planning trip to San Francisco and Silicon Valley to arrange corporate excursions with key alumni. It was easy to say yes to Marcus's big ideas because you knew he was going to do the work and make it great. Following Gonzaga, Marcus completed the Kellogg Management Executive Seminar in Chicago. After completing internships at Lufthansa Technik in Germany and Microsoft in Seattle, Marcus joined Microsoft, leading creative development for media partnerships as part of the global advertising and board team. He oversaw Microsoft's Surface worldwide marketing strategy, targeting creators. As a 12-year tech brand and product marketer, Marcus is currently the creative director and chief of staff. I welcome Marcus, and I'm really looking forward to what he has to share with us today.
Thank you, Erin. Let me know if everyone can see my screen and my slides are right and the audio is working. But thank you, Erin, for that intro. I'm really excited to be here because I've had like Erin alludes to, I've had a long history with GAMP, and it's great to come here, 12 years or so after graduating and speaking with you today. I guess I'd start with, I'm going to take some time today and tell you a little bit about myself and what I do, and then also sort of how I personally connect the work that I do today back to my time at Gonzaga. Like Erin said, I've graduated in 2008, studied at the business school. At this point, I've spent about half my life in Germany and half my life in the US. I came to the US for university. I briefly went back to Germany, worked at Lufthansa, but I've really spent my career at Microsoft. And I landed at Microsoft after doing an internship that a GAMP mentor helped me land. And to this day, I have a great relationship and speak frequently with Arnie because he's just always been a mentor of mine. And that's been a relationship that started when I was a student. I'm speaking to you today from a room that we call the roadmap room here at Microsoft. It's a space where you find products and technologies that we're working on that start sort of in the first row of tables from the stuff we're launching just a few weeks from now. And then it sort of goes on and on and on to the backs of the room years into the future. It's a magical space. It's super inspirational. It educates the leaders that come into the space. And we really develop new products in this space. We let them marinate in this space to get acclimated to the stuff that we're working on. And I can't swing the camera around to show you what's next to me, but I just wanted to give you context for the space that I'm speaking to you. 2020, I think, Erin, you touched on this briefly. It's been an interesting year. It's definitely not been without its challenges. I definitely want to recognize how difficult the last couple of days have been, I think, for all of us here at Microsoft and for our group, for our team. We've been having a lot of conversation about what's going on. And so actually, thank you for taking time away and spending some time here with GAM. I think 2020 on a whole, like on a personal and positive note, just personally, my wife, Chris, and I, we had our second baby boy in March. We've got 2 boys, Grayson 3.5 and Lachlan 10 months old. I've actually been working from home since just before the birth of Lachlan. I think we went into lockdown on a Friday and then Lachlan was born that following Monday. But the nature of my work actually brings me into our studio frequently. I'm the creative director and chief of staff for the design team at Microsoft. Our team builds Windows and Android operating systems. We build all the hardware and devices that Microsoft makes. I'll spend a bunch of my time talking today with you about my work and my team, but actually one of the great parts of our team is we have our own video production team. And so I have a couple of videos I'm going to share with you. I had the team put together a video that just shows you the products that we've released this last year, just so you can get a taste of the work before we then dive into sort of the bulk of the presentation. These videos play best if you crank up the volume. They're meant for big speakers, so I'll let the video play. So in my team, we spend a lot of time talking about our core values as an organization. They're the core values, the beliefs that hold our group together, that govern how we work together. They're the North Star for the leaders on our team that help them set the culture that we want in our studio. They also communicate the expectation that we have of every designer on our team. Rarely do we do a team meeting where we don't devote at least some of our time talking about one of these values and what they mean to us, how we live by them. And I'm going to structure my time with you today sort of along those same core values. I'll talk about each core value, connect them to the lessons I've learned at Gonzaga and how we think about them as a design studio. So let's talk about being relentless. This is the core value that probably most embodies the pace of our team. It speaks to how we pursue perfection in every little detail. It's the experience of the devices that we create. Now, I'm not a designer. Aaron already shared this. I studied finance, international business, Asian studies, marketing. But the people on my team include industrial designers, videographers, the CG artists, human factors engineers, researchers, color material experts. We even have our own classically trained composer on our video team. What we do as a design team is create experiences and objects. And it might help to define sort of what design means. Many times when I talk to people and customers, there's a sort of perception that design is about aesthetics. And it's not 100% wrong. But as a studio, we certainly do more than making beautiful objects. Often when I hear the word aesthetics, this is actually what I think about. I think of taking an object, even a shitty one, and then covering it with something pretty. Now, don't get me wrong, there's part of being relentless is finding a way to get the job done. So there is a way to polish a turd. What you do is you put it in the freezer, you let it get really cold, and then you take it out and you buff it up. The only problem is you have to keep it cold all the time. Now, jokes aside though, what we see in the meaning of design and aesthetics is actually more than just creating pleasing experiences and devices. Within the word aesthetics is the word ethics. And I'm sure when you think of one of the big tech firms, Microsoft, Apple, Google, Facebook, you think about new stuff. Every year there's new stuff. And when we think about design, we want to think about the whole experience, your experience touching, using, interacting with a piece of technology, both hardware and software. How does that object help you achieve what you aim to do? But also, what does this object mean for our planet? To be sustainable means making products that are high quality, that don't break, that last a long time, and that are made in a way that isn't harmful to our environment. From a business point of view, that means making products that can be repaired and recycled. So design then is about creating experiences and devices that fit into the human condition, not just about a roadmap of faster processors and glitzier screens, but thinking about the human roadmap and how we make products that fit into your life. Design is creating objects and experiences that fit the whole person, and that requires a desire to learn, to understand, and to consider that whole person. These are just some of the wonderful humans on our team. Together, this team designs products. Erica here in the front with the big smile, she's one of the foremost experts in color and material finishes on extruded plastic. Jack knows everything there is to know about aluminum anodization. Ellie grew up in Togo, went to design and fashion school in Paris, and now makes amazing headphones. Kate's an artist from Utah and works with Kelly, where they wrap laptops in fabric and infuse that fabric with smart technologies. Eric in the very back is actually a trained toy maker. He'll build you anything you can dream up in our studio workshop. The team is over 160 people, representing 20 plus countries. Most of us love to bike, and it really does break my heart sort of that I'm in this office space in our beautiful studio, and we can't actually all hang out here together since we've all been home since March. Let's talk about our next cultural value, which is to fail fast. This cultural value is really ingrained in our team in many different ways. At its core, we are a prototyping culture. Most of our ideas and products sort of follow this simple trajectory. They start out as really simple, primitive ideas, something the team can mock up with some cardboard, scissors, and tape. And as the team works with mechanical engineers and electrical engineers, software developers, researchers, all these products tend to get very, very complicated. And we believe that here it is where we need to try and fail, try and fail, try and fail until we get something simple that comes out at the end of that process. Because we believe that products that return to their simplest forms have the highest likelihood of being successful. So this idea of like less is more actually really is true. We make videos because a video is better than 1,000 words, and then we make, we hack and we make prototypes because those are better than 1,000 videos. We make prototypes because we need to measure and test and learn. And our goal is to deeply understand the technologies and experiences we're looking to create. The value of an open mind, of knowing how to learn and how to think critically about the information and insights around you is so important. If you approach a problem with a closed mind or a fixed idea of how you're going to solve it, you may get lucky in succeeding to solve that problem, but you're going to fail to deeply understand what you're dealing with and finding the 100 different ways you could have solved that problem. The ups and downs of each of those solutions is just as valuable a lesson as sort of churning out just another product. We look for insights at every level to help us sort of refine our concepts. Here, Kelly is wearing a device that measures the strain on her brain while she uses a variety of prototypes. This picture was actually taken 4 years ago when this team started working on our first dual screen device. We have a team here that we call Human Factors Research. They're biomechanical engineers, neuroergonomicists, vision, audio, neuromuscular experts, many of them PhDs. And the result of that work is Surface Duo, which we launched this last summer. It's not a folding phone, but it's a phone with 2 distinct displays, each independently driven. The result is a product that lets you work and play in a way that is far less demanding on your brain. And the 2 hinges can seal 60 cables, each thinner than a human hair, that the team invented here so Duo can adapt to how you want to work. So let's talk about being human. We've already talked about this team creating objects, and we've talked about creating great experiences. But being human is about the people on this team, the makers that come together to form our studio. To be human is probably the most important ingredient to building a great team. The single biggest responsibility I have as the creative director is to create a studio where the most fragile ideas can take root. We often talk about this studio being a safe space, a studio where every person feels respected, welcomed, accepted, a safe space to be creative. At our core, we believe that the products that we make are a reflection of the people that make them. Our products are not just for the bottom line. I think ingrained in our belief to be human and relentless, we want to make sure that our experiences are accessible to everyone. 1 in 4 Americans have a disability. Most of those are unseen, but that's over 60 million Americans here alone that have a hearing, a mobility, a vision, or a cognition disability. This is probably one of the products I'm most proud of. It came out of a hackathon project with designers and gamers at the company to create sort of a fully accessible Xbox controller. You can see the box in front with the two large buttons that you can hit, and then essentially you adapt controllers that you need that work for your level of ability to interact with an object, a game, or an operating system just the way somebody with full ability. The next core value is actually, it's a relic from my time at GU. I spent several semi-unsuccessful weeks on the crew team. I figured as a German, I've never experienced school sports. I should totally try out for a team. Now, keep in mind, I came to GU. There's no concept of college sports in Germany. There's no NCAA. There's no Division I. It looked like a good time, and so I signed up for a tryout. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. It looked like a good time, and I did have a good time, but I didn't last very long. But there's something about this concept of a rowboat, cutting through water under human power. It's just super powerful. And so grabbing an oar is one of our core values that we have in the team. It means, in many ways, grabbing an oar is sort of the application of those values that we've already talked about. It's our personal experiences and our abilities coming together to make great products. The chemistry of the whole team is one, being able to create something that one alone would have never been able to come up with. What you're seeing here is a D cover being anodized. When we build a laptop, we assemble the shell from 4 CNC'd aluminum pieces, meaning we take a slab of aluminum and you basically grind out the piece that you need. The top is the D cover. You can actually see sort of the outline of the logo that's going to go in there later. The A cover is the bottom. The B cover houses the keyboard. The C cover secures the screen, and then the D cover completes the package. Anodization is the process where you essentially give a piece of aluminum a bath in a long row of these pools. There's probably 15 or 20 of these to the left of this picture. And the chemical composition of the water, of the liquid itself, interacts with the aluminum. That's how we color and treat our aluminum laptops for longevity. The design and engineering teams spend hours, days, months together, collaborating and solving problems to get the color, the anti-fingerprint properties, the durability of our products just right. Before COVID, this meant a significant portion of our team would spend weeks every year in China at our factories, working closely with our manufacturing teams. Now with COVID, we've hired people in China because we can't get our own team to go over there right now with travel restrictions. I actually personally left China on one of the last flights last January, haven't had a haircut since, as COVID was just taking off. And I'd spent 2 weeks with some designers doing sample reviews at several of our part manufacturers in China. So grabbing an oar is about teamwork. It's about collaboration. It's about empathy, supporting one another, coming together to create something new. Our team of 160 designers works alongside almost 6,000 other engineers. So what you're seeing here then is a stage. It's a stage where we have built instruments that are made for you to use. That's how we think about our team and what we do. And our hardware is just a stage for software. And our software is the gateway for you to make whatever you want. And so grabbing an oar means we need the whole team to come together, to collaborate, to lean on each other's expertise, to be product makers together. And finally, let's talk about no cynics. When you design an experience, you're making thousands of choices. These choices will define the results that you get. How you get through that process is much more important than what the product is that you're actually making. When you take a step back and consider your experience as a Gonzaga student today, and personally, my own personal experience has taught me that there's a very little difference between making great products and finding your path, after school. You start with an idea or a goal that you have. You don't know how you'll get there, or you're even unsure if the goal that you have is the right goal. But the only way to find out is to try and to hack. The first job might not be the perfect one. It's certainly not going to be your last. What isn't important is that you find the perfect job or internship. What matters is that you take a step and you pursue that idea. And the lessons and the experiences along the way will actually inch you closer to where you want to go. And whether that's a great product or your dream career. You know, you try 1,000 ways to bring that idea to life through hacking and learning and then trying some more. And success usually doesn't come on the first try. Definitely not, you know, hopefully not turning in your first draft of your term paper either. But as you sort of try, success comes from not giving up and not being cynical about your path to how you got there, but considering what you're learning and just keeping at it. And so just some closing thoughts. I think this is sort of a summary of the stuff that the team has worked on this last year. I'm actually gonna play another video. It's slightly longer, but it's a video that the team made about one of the products that we launched this past year. It's actually the giant big screen in the back there on the right-hand side. Specifically, it's a video of the team creating the video that was used to launch the product. So a little behind the scenes look at our team. You'll see a bunch more people from our team, and I thought it would be a great way to just show you, again, some of the people that work on this team.
Oh, yes, for the device.
Oh, hey, oh. You look like a Spider-Man.
Back to one.
All the videos we make that launch our products are made by our own video team, and they feature the designers on this team. It's just part of the process for how we make products. Telling the story of our products is part of a development process. And I think there's just a great way to maybe show more people on team and what it is that they do. So I guess as a final thought, I think we're hiring. You know, my team and Microsoft, we're hiring. So if you're inspired to create or you just want to chat more, please reach out. I'd love to talk. And so I think with that, just thanks for the time and looking forward to any questions. Aaron, I don't know if we have time for questions. We can open it up as well.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Marcus. That was just fascinating to see how you all work. And we do have time for questions. So if you have a question, you can either put your microphone on and ask it, or enter it into the chat, and I will access those and direct them to Marcus.
Cool. I can't actually see the chat, so if you guys call
Okay.
it out, that'd be awesome. And if there's other Microsoft people online too, I don't know, Arnie, if you're on.
I'm here.
Oh, Arnie, there you are. Good to see you, man. It's been a long time.
I do have one question. How do you get from working in, graduating from the Gonzaga Business School and finance and all this to being a creative director? Where's the kind of path that you took to get there?
That's a great question. I think that it sort of gets back to my, like the first job is definitely not going to be your last. I've been at Microsoft for, I guess 12 and a half years now. And I've probably had like 10 different jobs since I graduated. I mean, I've worked in our education group. I've worked in, when I worked with mostly students, I think Gonzaga actually at one point was using some of the services, like it was basically email and collaboration tools. So I worked on that product. I worked in Windows. I worked on like infrastructure management tools as sort of like core product marketing. And then I spent several years working on the Surface devices, sort of started working on them before they launched. And sort of that's where I started sort of a transition from what you would consider maybe traditional product marketing, where you're trying to take a product and you're trying to, sell it to a customer, like create the narrative that you use to sell it to a customer. And I sort of transitioned into more of a consumer focused role, right? And so all of a sudden I was dealing with artists and architects and musicians, because those were the customers I was talking to. And so I started sort of going through this transition of like writing, marketing plans that were focused on businesses to more of a consumer focused. And that sort of then got me into my next 3 jobs, where at one point I worked on our TV ads. Then I did like product placement, like when you see a Microsoft product show up in a TV show, like I did that. Both like the actual like working with the producers and the directors, like actually finding opportunities to place the devices, but then like also like being the guy who was like unboxing devices and setting them up and then like putting the software on them and then teaching an actor what they were going to do with it, like super hands-on. And so I've gone through these like just a ton of different jobs, like sales, marketing, sort of more business management side. And my job now is it actually started much more as like a business operations leader. Like obviously we're a team of 160, and so there's a lot of process and sort of rhythm that comes to our business. And so the creative director part of my job is more so about the, how to make sure that the right people are working on the right projects at the right time. And so I spend a lot of my time today doing talent management, making sure we hire the right designers, making sure that Microsoft as a company is actually recruiting at the right schools to find the right designers. And so the title itself sort of hides maybe how, like, I'm only really able to do this job because I've done 10 other jobs. Like little pieces of other jobs have given me the breadth of experience that I need to then go do this job. I don't think that any one sort of move or one single job is sort of what like made me a creative director or a chief of staff.
Hey, Marcus, you forgot to mention the appearance on Oprah even. That was pretty cool.
I was on Oprah once. That's a funny story.
And
I spent a week at Oprah's house teaching a bunch of her like kids how to like use computers. It was pretty fun. So yeah, that's kind of the thing. Like I went from like being like a guy that like dealt, like this is kind of it's a bad joke, but like the product that I worked on right before I did the Oprah thing was like, it's a tool that you use to manage data centers. And so I always joke that like I went from like where my primary customer were like guys that sit in basements that never see the sunlight to like essentially like, artists and architects. And then that led me to like be on the Oprah show kind of thing. And it went like really quick. It took like 6 months to go from one to the other. So
Marcus, one of the questions in the chat is related to this, and that's the chief of staff part of your title. What does that entail, and what does that mean?
Yeah, totally. So chief of staff, there's a number of them at Microsoft. Like there's not one chief of staff. Like Satya has a chief of staff. It's sort of a role where like any larger team, sort of in the several hundred range typically, there's sort of a centralized person who sort of, I guess in my particular case, I sort of like, there's my boss. He's the head of design. He's a designer. He runs the design discipline. He makes the creative decisions about what our devices and what our software looks like. But he's a creative guy. Like, he's a left brain kind of guy. And then my job as chief of staff is essentially to run the team, right? So like, I actually do the sort of the more like, okay, making sure, again, we have the right people working on the right projects at the right time, making sure that, you know, a bunch of creative designers are actually plugged into the business the right way. Because at some point there needs to be a website that launches the product. And so my job is sort of to manage the business side of the design organization. And I guess chief of staff, and I think it actually comes from like a political realm. I feel like it's sort of like, you know, like you have a leader, you have a group of leaders, we call them the leadership team. And then my role is essentially to run that business.
Marcus, we have a question from Shannon. How do you work with HR? Are they a strategic partner or just function with you occasionally?
So actually 2 ways. And I don't think that the Microsoft way is necessarily the perfect way, but we essentially have HR 2 ways. We have an HR business partner, Kimberly. I meet with her twice a week, and we just like, she is like one of the people I work with, just making sure that as a team, we're set up the right way. Are we developing employees the right way? Do we have the right things in place to ensure that our employees are happy, that they don't leave, that we're, you know, not necessarily paying them the right way, but essentially ensuring that the environment around that employee is the right one. And then also, you know, when something isn't going great, sort of Kimberly as our HR business partner is sort of the person that we work with to have those kind of conversations. And then there's sort of like a centralized HR group at Microsoft, and it's essentially an email address. And that's the one you email every time you need like a transactional thing. So I would say like, I personally probably spend much more time directly communicating and sitting in meetings with my HR business partner who supports me and my boss. But then like, there's, you know, this sort of centralized group that does everything from benefits to, you know, like, you know, leaves of absences. Microsoft's, I mean, Microsoft is one of the best companies to work for, like no question about it. Like, we have a great program right now. I think we colloquially call it like the pandemic leave. Like, essentially, if you have kids at home and they're not in school, like, we're giving you paid leave right now. I think it's 12 or 16 weeks. Like, if you come to me and you say, you know, as somebody on my team, we've had 5 or 6 people do this. They come to me and they say, hey, I'm just having a hard time. You know, I have kids at home, they're in school, I need to, you know, so deal with them. And then, you know, my husband also works, or my wife also works, or my partner also works. And then we basically say like, yeah, go take leave. Like, this is the right thing for you. And then we email the centralized HR group and they take care of that kind of stuff. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, you might touch on recruiting being separate from HR too.
Yeah, same thing, right? So like we have like HR, we have a recruiting partner, like a lead that helps us recruit at like a design discipline all up. And then we have, you know, a whole team of recruiters that are dedicated to college graduation, fresh out of school sort of processes. And so, yeah, we, you know, whether that's interns or full-time hires, and, you know, for industrial design or for, you know, user experience design, we have sort of a whole recruiting team we work with as well.
Marcus, we have a question about your managers. Did you feel that they had your best interest in mind, or did you need to be your own active steward for career development?
I'd say the answer is yes to both. When you spend some time sort of in the workforce, there's definitely managers that you work with that are great managers, and that you can have sort of great conversations about your own development, your own career growth with. You know, there's very few people who actually give great feedback. Like I sort of strongly believe that, you know, feedback needs to be given in the moment, on the spot, needs to be timely, needs to be specific, because otherwise the employee just you don't get out of it, you know, what you need in that moment. And so, like, I've had managers over the years who've been wonderful advocates. You know, my current manager, I've had a long, you know, I go back years with him. We've worked together for years, and he's a great advocate for me. But I've also had really terrible managers, and you kind of like over the years, like, it actually teaches you how to be a manager yourself. So it can go both ways. Like, I think You can have great managers who are great advocates. In my case, I'm super lucky, right now, where I am right now, I've got great advocates, but it doesn't have to be. And either way, whether they're great advocates for you or not, you're still your best, advocate. Like there's never a moment where, if you have ambitions for, a greater role, as long as you back it up with results, like you have to push for those yourself. Like it's not just going to fall into your lap. I think I sort of said I've had 10 different jobs in the 12 years I've been here. I think of those jobs, I've only not picked out 3 of them. Like I think 3 times over the last 12 years, I was basically told like, you're now doing this. And it changed underneath me. And sometimes it was good and sometimes it wasn't great, but by and large, every move I've made because I either felt like I wasn't learning enough, or I didn't feel challenged enough, or I had heard about something really cool happening somewhere else and I just went after it, and that's the job I wanted to do. This job that I'm in right now, actually, I wrote the job description for it. And then it took me 2 years to convince my current boss to hire me to do this job. So you're part of your own destiny for sure.
We have a question about what parallels do you see with working in Germany and working in America?
There's definitely parallels, and then there's a bunch of differences. I am fully Americanized at this point. I think there's my German's getting worse and worse and worse. But I think just from an expectation of how I maybe approach some of the issues that I deal with, or how I maybe want to talk in a group setting about an issue, maybe some of my German traits come through in those. But by and large, the U.S. everything aside of the last 2 days, it's just an amazing place to live and work, because it's a place that sort of emphasizes everyone's unique abilities. I don't think that when I was at Lufthansa, it was so much more of a hierarchical system. Here at Microsoft, and many other companies are the same way in the US. It's certainly not something unique to Microsoft, but it's an open environment. If you have an idea, if you want to talk about something, if you disagree with something, part of our culture of no cynics, of be human. It's a card that you can play that lets you share your opinion. And I think part of what makes working in the US great is that there's maybe more of an openness to that kind of approach. I think in Germany, my experience was much more if you were the junior person in the room, you never really overstepped your the more senior person in the job. It's much more sort of like a step system. Now, that being said, in Germany, you get a company car. And if I had my job in Germany, I'd probably be on a 5 or 10 year contract, and here I could get fired the next day. There's its ups and downs. I think honestly, there's not everything's great. But on the whole, I'm here for a reason. I love it here. Obviously, my family's here. I don't think I can convince them to move to Germany. None of them speak German. But yeah, I love it here. So
This is from Allison Devine. You said you graduated in 2008. So do you have any recommendations for those graduating now in the struggling job market?
I think first of all, I feel for you. It's a tough time to graduate. I think first of all, just if you take a step back and you think about your last year in school, I really enjoyed my last year in school. I think it was a great time to be on campus, to be with friends, and I actually have to honestly, I personally don't know if you guys are all on campus or if you're all working remote. I don't actually know. But if you're remote, I feel for you. It's not the same as being on campus. So that's probably a downside. I think also the job market today, it has its pockets of greatness, and then it certainly as a whole probably doesn't look as bright as it did maybe just a few years ago. Certainly companies like Microsoft and Amazon and Facebook and Google, a lot of the big tech companies, Zillow. And then also a lot of other businesses, they're hiring. There's a lot of jobs that are open. There's certainly demand for these companies that are weathering the storm. I think certainly small businesses, medium-sized businesses, they're feeling much more of the squeeze. On a whole, actually, we're doing really well, surprisingly, or for lack of better words. the pandemic and everyone working from home is great for selling devices that people need to be productive. So it's actually, for us, it's been a really, really successful year. And so, Microsoft, it comes with its, I guess my words would be start early and don't give up. Like, I think there's probably a Venn diagram here of like the companies that are doing the best and they're doing most of the hiring also require you to start the earliest. Like typically companies like Microsoft have a pretty lengthy process to get a position. A lot of our marketing and engineering hiring happens via internship processes. So if you're a graduating senior and you didn't do an internship, right, that creates sort of hurdle number one. If you are a junior looking for an internship, like our internship processes are right now. Like right now is when we're doing loops for interns next year. Most of our incoming graduate hires, with a few exceptions, is pretty much done. And Arnie, hold me honest here, but I think usually, like there's a few positions here or there, but by and large, most of our sort of graduating class is locked in by now. So I guess my advice will be, the bigger the company, the earlier you want to start, and then just don't be relentless. I think at one point I pretended to be a UW student just so I can go to the career fair so I can meet a Microsoft recruiter because they didn't come to Gonzaga. And then I met Arnie and he helped, which was, always a plus. Arnie's hired a lot of Gonzaga people over the years. So
great hires.
We are very grateful to have Arnie on our team. This is from Davis Hoover. If you had to choose one thing, what is the thing that excites you most about Microsoft?
Oh, that's hard. Okay, I'll pick one, and then there's like a super close second and third and fourth and fifth. I honestly think that like the breadth of the team is what sort of has always held me here. Over the years, like everyone, you look elsewhere, and at one point I quit, but I never actually technically quit. I went straight back before I even started at the other place. This team, I've talked a little bit about the team. Like we have 160 people from 20 different countries, and it doesn't feel like sort of it's just a super diverse bunch of people. They're all super talented. They all work super hard. It's like, I don't know what time it is. It's not quite 5, but there's like 30 people on the other side of this wall, and we're in the middle of a pandemic, and technically none of us are supposed to be here. But in the studio, there's 30 people like working on the products that we're shipping, everywhere from like 3 months from now to 3 years from now. And everyone is just super passionate about the work that they do. And so I think it's the people that I get to work with every day that are probably the thing I'm most excited about. And then sort of quickly follows up on that, it's just kick-ass technology. It's really like you're at the front edge of what's coming years. In my job, I get to work on stuff that many of you won't get to touch for 5 or 6 years. And that's really exciting to me, who's really into gadgets. I spend way too much money on gadgets and toys, I think my wife would tell you, and maybe pairs of skis and bikes. I have some problems, people. And so I think that's probably number 2. And then number 3 is probably just the company as a whole. Like I kind of alluded this, it's just a really great place to work. They take care of their people. And I think that says a lot about the place.
We have time for 2 more questions, and then we'll move on to networking. But question from Elizabeth Miranda: does Microsoft have programs to ensure that employees are developing their skills and growing professionally?
Absolutely. So there's a couple different ways. I'll give you sort of the, let me try to answer that. So number 1, every year there's sort of like a training and development that's baked into sort of the process that we use to manage our people's performances. Like when I have a performance review with somebody on my team, one of the things that we talk about is what are you going to do in the next 12 months to develop and grow? That can be anything from, getting a mentor within the company. It could be, attending a conference. It could be attending classes. We actually, for every employee in our team, we get like money that we can spend to then send them to a conference or to attend a class. And I think it probably depends on what group you're in, but like Microsoft as a whole has all these programs that ensure that you're getting trained. There's trainings that we have to take as employees that are more like business fundamental stuff that we have to do. But then there's also this budget that you can use. At one point, we have a tuition reimbursement program. At one point, I told my manager that I would be a better marketer if I knew how to speak Arabic. And so they paid for my like Arabic classes for like 2 years. Because there's a tuition reimbursement program. Like we have a guy here, a designer here. He's really into sneakers. He makes we have these keyboards that are wrapped in fabric, and so he makes like custom edition keyboards in our model shop. And he really wanted to learn how to work with leather, and so we sent him to like sneaker school for 3 months. He learned how to make sneakers, and so like we have money to send people to those kind of programs to help them sort of develop in those ways. And so there's definitely programs that exist for that here.
So great. This is from Ellie Smith. Although you had several jobs between graduating and working at Microsoft, what specifically about GU prepared you for work at Microsoft? Did it give you any kind of edge?
Yeah, I think that it's sort of a hard one to pinpoint. I think the answer is yes. And then if you hold my feet to the fire and you make me point out exactly what it is, it's going to be hard to sort of point to one single thing. I think the biggest thing, there's something about sort of an education that is not super oriented around a hard set of skills that you then apply. Like if I don't ever in my job today break out my marketing textbooks or my finance textbooks and reference back to, accounting balance sheet principles that I learned, or, the 4 Ps and how to apply them to a marketing problem. But what I reference back is sort of the ability to, assess a problem, to look at a problem and to not just jump to a conclusion, but to take a step back, think about sort of the whole problem, think about it holistically, think critically about what you're dealing with. Like, I think that's probably the thing that Gonzaga did just a really good job of. And that, again, when I was at Gonzaga, I probably didn't appreciate it that way, but I feel like I was taking classes in my other, core requirements in other parts of the school that just focused on being a great learner and being a great student and having an open mind. And that's probably the stuff that I use the most today. Like, that's probably the thing that makes me, gives me the ability to be successful in my job. And it's simply to just not jump to a conclusion, but have an open mind and approach a problem with that open mind.
Thank you. Thank you, Marcus. And if you're available to stay for some networking, I'm sure anyone can ask you additional questions, or we can follow.
Absolutely, yeah. Happy to.
Great. So we're going to transition into the networking segment now. So what you will see is an invitation to join a breakout group. We'll be joining groups of about 4 to 5 people, and you'll be in that group for 10 minutes. We ask that everyone make sure their camera's on,